You're listening to the Telltale channel. Don't forget to check me out on all social media: Patreon, Twitter, Teespring, and Etsy. All links can be found in the description or on my website, telltaleatheist.com. This article is by Terry Firma on the Friendly Atheist website. The title is Korean Cops Raid COVID-Spreading Church. Sect's Leaders Face Homicide Charges. That was a mouthful of a title. Let's give this a read and see what it says. More evidence of the superior morality that religion bestows on its followers comes to us from South Korea. This is a quote. Prosecutors raided facilities of Shincheonji, a minor religious sect, on Friday as part of their ongoing probe into allegations that the group hindered state efforts to contain the new coronavirus in the early stages of the pandemic. Some 100 investigators took part in the raids into the secretive group's branches nationwide to seize materials in connection with the charges brought against the group's founder, man-hee. The raid marks the prosecution's first forcible investigation into the group since February, when a group of people who claimed to be victims of the religious group filed a complaint against the 89-year-old Lee for embezzlement, dereliction of duty, and violation of infectious disease prevention laws. Oh, wow. Yeah, we covered this cult a while back, like when all of this was actually taking place back in February. I talked about this, and I read a little bit about the cult from the Freedom of Mind database, which is Stephen Hassan's database of cults. Comes straight from the guy who wrote the Bite model. He has a particular interest in Korean cults because he came from the Moonies, which is another Korean cult. So it doesn't surprise me that he had a database containing this cult in it. But this is most definitely a cult. I find it interesting that when they mentioned this group, they said it's a minor religious sect. It's most definitely a cult. There is no question about it. I should do a full-blown Bite model breakdown of it on my channel sometime soon. Kind of a shame I haven't done that yet. But anyway. Let's continue reading here. Shincheonji's central theology is that Lee, which is man-hee, the leader, Lee is the second coming of Jesus Christ. He has made his followers believe that the Bible consists chiefly of mysterious metaphors that only he can decipher. I find it fascinating that an East Asian country like South Korea has Christian cults. Like, it's such a hotbed for Christian cults. You wouldn't think that there'd be very many Christian groups out there connected to East Asian countries, but sure enough, lots of Christian groups out there in East Asian countries, weirdly. Let's continue reading. Shincheonji's central theology is that Lee is the second coming of Jesus Christ. He has made his followers believe that the Bible consists chiefly of mysterious metaphors that only he can decipher. That particular derangement is perhaps harmless, but we can't say the same for the sect's behavior after the initial cases of COVID-19 came to light. Here's another quote. As the disease spread among Shincheonji's members and thousands of others, the group's founder and leaders refused to get tested, citing their religious beliefs to privacy, resulted in a national outcry against the group. Shincheonji members also resisted government attempts at tracking the spread of pandemic and implementation of social distancing rules. They did it first, and it was a huge, big deal, and then I remember this, the leader came out and was like, yeah, we're cooperating, we understand this is serious, we apologize for any issues that we've had up to now, we're very, very sorry, we want to work with the government now and figure out how to stop this pandemic. It was almost certainly all a show at that time. Now that we're seeing the group is getting in some serious shit for how they've acted, it was probably a show. They were trying to get them off their backs. Unsurprising. Let's continue reading here. The New York Times interviewed former members who divulged that worshippers, this is a quote again, worshippers sit packed tightly on the floor and attend even when sick. We were taught not to be afraid of illness, said Lee Ho-yeon, who left the church in 2015. A church leader boasted to followers on February 9th that although hundreds of people had died in Wuhan, China, where the outbreak began, no Shincheonji worshippers there became sick. Oh, shit. So he's claiming that they are immune to the virus, or what? I don't know what he's claiming with that. Because people are actually getting sick, like in his compound, like around him when they're coming to their services. They're sick. He can't possibly think that they're immune. He's seeing them right in front of his eyes, dying. This is nuts. And Isn't Christianity banned in China anyways? I'm pretty sure Christianity is banned in China. They take cults and religion, more generally speaking, really, really seriously. Like, they don't fuck around, China doesn't, with religion. It's kind of sad. There really isn't much freedom of religion in China, and I honestly think there should be freedom of religion. But it is a nationally atheist country. Even so, I think the vast majority of their members, of Chinese people, are actually religious. I think it's mostly Buddhist. But either way, really, really sad to see this dude rationalizing and lying like this. It's really depressing. God will protect us. We're invincible, says Terry Firma. The Korea Herald reports that the Shincheonji sect caused almost half the country's 11,000 plus known coronavirus cases. But an archived page from the Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention claims the correct percentage is 60. That's still an obnoxiously high number. If this cult hadn't been acting like fools like this, tens of thousands of people would still be alive today. I mean, just think about this in the context of the U.S. Cults, U.S. religious groups, extremist groups like the Life Tabernacle Church, for example. I mean, I've been following the goings-on with that since day one. With Tony Spell, the pastor who tried to run that dude over with a bus. It turns out we actually have that on camera. That whole bus incident where he tried to run the dude over. I thought it was Tony Spell's word against the other guys, but it's not. We have it on video. So, yeah, I can say that with confidence. Dude tried to run the guy over with a bus and is insistent on being a super spreader right now. It's insane. What do we do? Religion is going to be the death of us. Like, as a species, religious extremists are going to be the death of us. I'm telling you. Anyway, let's continue reading here. Man-hee, who has apologized on TV for unintentionally spreading the virus, was recently charged with homicide and inflicting injury, as were other leaders of the 240,000-strong sect. It's actually reasonably small, all things considered. Mormonism doesn't really kick people off the rolls as vigorously as Jehovah's Witnesses, for example. But last I checked, I think Jehovah's Witnesses have around 8.5 million people. Mormons have around 15 million, I think. But like I said, they don't kick people off their rolls as readily as Jehovah's Witnesses. Just trying to provide a little bit of context for how big this group is. I think there are 100,000 Christian Scientists. There are around 2.5 million vegans in the U.S., I believe. These numbers may be a little bit out of date, so if you're really curious, you should look them up yourself. And this is only 240,000 people. It's really very small, all things considered. But they're responsible for 60% of the country's COVID-19 deaths. Just goes to show you it takes one weak link to bring the entire thing down. Let's continue reading here. P.S. Religious grifters and self-styled saviors often find surprising success in Korea, says the Times. As the country has suffered war and deprivation in the past century, 120 self-styled messiahs promising a new world of peace have emerged, 70 commanding sizable followings. Some ended up in jail on fraud or charges, or lived in disgrace after the rapture they had promised never came, but their apostles split and spread, rebranding themselves into new sects. Much like a mutating virus when you think about it. That's true. That's why Richard Dawkins came up with the word meme, M-E-M-E. I think he published that word officially originally. He came up with that word. And he came up with it in his book, The Selfish Gene, I believe. He said he wanted a word that kind of sounded like gene, and he picked meme because it sounded so similar. It's basically like a mind virus is what it is. And in a lot of ways, that's what religion is, for better or worse. You know, extremism like this is a virus of the mind.